Now, we now have to turn to the surprising developments surrounding the Capitol attack. So many people in Washington, D.C. are talking about this story. New audio obtained by the authors of a soon-to-be-released book revealed that in the days after January 6th, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy considered recommending then President Trump, resign.
Again, the only discussion I would have with him is that I think this will pass, and it would be my recommendation you should resign. That would be my take, but I don't think he would take it, but I don't know.
And I've been very clear to the president. He bears responsibilities for his words and actions. No ifs, ands, or buts. I asked him personally today, does he hold responsibility for what happened? Does he feel bad about what happened? He told me he does have some responsibility for what happened. And he needs to acknowledge that.
Very striking. Before the release of that audio that you just heard, McCarthy called reporting by the New York Times journalist, quote, totally false. Dan, I want to come to you. You're, of course, the politics. You're a veteran political reporter. I wonder what you make of what's going on here, especially when your paper, The Washington Post, is reporting that President Trump and McCarthy talked and that Trump isn't mad for now. As an old Trump White House reporter, I have to say for now because that's what that president's emotion seems to often be like. So how much trouble is McCarthy really in right now?
I think that remains to be seen, but I think this was a terrible moment for him to come out as he did on Thursday and deny in the fulsome way he denied what the New York Times was reporting. And this is from the book that Jonathan Martin and Alex Burns will publish in early May. That denial was so strong that when the audio was played last night on MSNBC, it completely undid him. And I think it revealed him for what many people have criticized him for many, many months. One, that he's been politically weak, another, that he's been hypocritical, and a third, that in a sense, his kind of, desire to be the next speaker if the Republicans win the midterm elections in November, have prompted him to do almost everything imaginable to be, subservient to former President Trump. And I think it was doubly revealing that after having denied and then been, revealed to have been lying about the denial, that he then reached out to President Trump, as opposed to acknowledging, okay, yes, I did say this, but I never actually made the call, or, some way to kind of worm his way out of it. But clearly his concern is that Trump will turn on him. And if Trump turns on him, then the House conference might turn on him. And his dream of being speaker, if they win in November, would go up in smoke.
Dan, that's why we have you on the show, because it's summaries like that makes me want to talk to you every Friday night. Laura, the words that Dan just used, undid, revealed. Mm-hmm. I wonder, though, when you think about the fact that the other part of this audio is former President Trump supposedly acknowledging that he has some responsibility for the Capitol attack. How much weight does that have, given the fact that Trump is still in charge of the GOP, essentially, and he's continuing to lie about the 2020 election? He hasn't changed his tone at all.
Yeah, what's so striking about this audio and everything that we're hearing from the January 6th committee and everything that's come out, and that, Jonathan Martin from the New York Times said there's going to be more tapes, so there could be very well more that is coming out. But is that there appears to be no red line, whether it's a moral red line or a constitutional red line for Republicans when it comes to Trump, which is that Trump is saying he bore some responsibility for January 6th to McCarthy. Those same reporters from the New York Times said that McConnell agreed that Trump should be impeached and potentially considered voting to convict him in the Senate. McCarthy thought that he should maybe resign. And yet, despite all of that, and despite the fact that they found his conduct unbecoming to be president, they've decided to still say that they would support him if he runs again in 2024, and that they want his support as they try to regain control of the party. Of the country, sorry.
Of the party, of the country. It's interchangeable in some ways. But David, I mean, I would ask you an articulate question, but really weigh in here. This is
Sure.
just the story
So-
that we all were talking about last night.
What a Washington moment here. Okay. First of all, if you have more than 2 people in a room in Washington, assume there is a microphone running someplace and a tape running someplace.
A good rule.
Okay, good rule. Second rule is, I know it's like a really easy thing to go do, particularly for many of the pro-Trump Republicans, to say, oh, that was in the New York Times or the Washington Post or you name it. It got to be wrong. Okay, well, let's set aside for a moment that Jonathan and Alex, both colleagues of mine, are 2 of the finest political reporters in Washington. And if they report it, you can pretty well take it to the bank. But then to have Martin, to have in this case, the revelation of the tape moments after the denial, I mean, really tells you how the city works. And it makes you wonder what McCarthy thought he was doing, why he thought he could get away with this. Maybe in the long run he will. Maybe no one will remember this come, November and December when we're talking about who's going to be running the House.
Dan, will there be a political price to pay for McCarthy here? Is when you think about sort of the GOP and especially in that party, not a lot of people have paid prices when it comes to false information. And of course, President Trump, who's playing party boss and handing out endorsements, he has not always obviously been truthful. So is there a price to pay for McCarthy here?
Well, I think there's a price to be paid, and he's been paying it in the greater world. I mean, in the eyes of history, if you will, without trying to be too grand about that. Kevin McCarthy's reputation has sunk over the last 18 months or more because of the way he has behaved vis-a-vis former President Trump. Whether there will be a price to be paid on what he really cares about remains to be seen. And I think, as I indicated, I think to some extent or to a large extent, that's in the hands of President Trump and perhaps some others in the Republican conference. But those who have gone against President Trump have paid a price within the party. And the, Exhibit A of that is Congresswoman Liz Cheney, who was on that same call where McCarthy made these statements, and who is the vice chair of the January 6th House Committee, and who's been driven out of the leadership of the Republicans in the House, and might well be defeated in November in her bid for re-election. That's the sort of internal politics of House Republicans, and in that sense, Kevin McCarthy may not pay any price at all.
It's striking when you think about sort of where Liz Cheney landed and where Kevin McCarthy landed in listening to that audio. And it tells you so much about sort of what was going on behind the scenes there.